welcome everyone to another exciting adventure of riding through the unknown. And we seem to be having some fun with Alex. He was on, and now he seems to be having issues with connection.
His name is there.
Disappearing act.
His name was there. I'm sure he'll be right back.
And the fun part for y'all is we were having great conversation before we hit live. We hit live, he disappears. So we'll hopefully get him back on as soon as we can. And in the meantime, I know I don't need to address who's on stage, but we'll see if we can't while we figure out with Alex. There he is.
I'm backstage. Hey guys, sorry about that. It's the internet's wonky.
I thought you went through the jump room, Alex. You went up to the ship and back.
Yeah, I wish that were true. I wish that were true.
Well, I'm going to give you all a chance, since you all have been on my shows before, a chance to introduce yourselves and kind of give a little bit of what's going on with you now, kind of spiel. So we'll start with Tony, because he was on the most recent.
Age before beauty, I guess. Michael, thanks for having me. Firstly, thanks for putting this together. I want to tell you that I admire both of these guys, and I always joke about it with Brad, but I mean this in an emotional sense, not the literal. I look up to both these guys. I really do. And I'm just stoked to be here. I could be a fly on the wall. I really, when you asked me, I was like giddy. The little kid in me was jumping up and down. So happy to be here. I've been very busy. I'm a, what's the word? Secret space program experiencer and whistleblower. And that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years now. But I've moved on to other things. I'm developing technologies from what I experienced out there and things I learned while I was researching, looking for evidence behind my claims. So I wouldn't, a lot of people just go on stage and claim a bunch of stuff and don't care, throw caution to the wind and don't care about evidence whatsoever. But every day since I've done this, I've always researched and I've been looking for evidence to prove it. And in that search, learned a lot. And I've spawned off companies. I teach remote viewing. And I'm gone off into some for-profit remote viewing projects, and they're taking off. They're going straight to the damn moon. It's been good. So, yeah, that's me. That's what I'm doing nowadays.
Very cool. And Tony, I'm there with you. I am in awe that you all are on stage and here today. So I'm with you. And so, Alex, we'll go to you next.
I'm the old timer here. My name is Alex Collier. I've been in a fifth dimensional Andromedan Zenithé contactee since the age of 8. I've been trying to figure it out and share what I've learned and what I know with everybody for a little over 35 years now. And, I'm a huge fan of Tony and Brad as well. Both of these gentlemen, they're warriors. They, they're on the front lines and they're doing everything they can to bring knowledge and awareness to everybody about what's been going on. Brad, the history piece, he throws in current events as well at times. Tony, like he said, secret space program, huge disclosure on all of that is coming. And of course, then there's the extraterrestrial piece. But a lot of that has already been known. It's just that our educational system, our college system, our archaeological system has been calling it myth and legend, when in fact it was a reality. So all of that's coming to fruition now. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here with our host, Michael. I knew his mom and dad. They were some of the finest people I've ever known. And Michael is a chip off both blocks. So thank you, Michael, for having me.
Well, thank you. And Alex, I got to say, you sell yourself short because you're also the historian. You keep an eye on the history and share the true history, which is really important right now, I think. So I just want to
Okay.
acknowledge that part of you.
I was passing the baton to Brad, but thank you for throwing it back at me.
Well, I'll let you pass it to Brad now.
Here you go, Brad.
Okay, well, if Alex is the older son and Tony's the youngest, that makes me the middle child, and that's what I am. I have an older brother, younger sister, and they all love to travel, and they all love history too, but have not traveled to the extent I have. And the last big trip was down to Antarctica 7.5 years ago, and now that is the subject of my 11th book, Secrets of Antarctica: Untold History of the Ice Continent. So up on all this stuff, I just 2 days ago flew back from Germany. Laura Eisenhower and my girlfriend Venus, they're still over there, going to Weaselberg Castle with the giant motif of the Black Sun, the occult castle of the Third Reich, which I told them, you guys got to go there. And I would have loved to have gone there too. But I had this interview. I had to get back, plus a lot of other things. But geez, I'll tell you, every time I'm at a conference and either Tony or Alex are there, I just gravitate over to those guys. I can't wait to hang out with them and catch up and chit chat just like we did in the pre-show.
Well,
Yeah, we have so many things in common, you know,
We do.
and we step in and out of the shit show every day.
That's what it
And-
is.
I have to commend you, Brad, on because when I first met you, you had just got off stage at the first GSIC, and I walked up to you and I said, "Hey, can I take a photo with you? Because my mom is a huge fan and will never believe this." And you actually said, "Well, here, let's get someone to take this." And you were like, "No, that one's not good. Let's make sure we get a good one." And so you're really approachable. Alex is approachable, and Tony, I was like, I missed the opportunity to catch you, but I don't think you ever entered the common area where the people were. I think you kind of kept skating in the back, maybe.
At the first ESIC, I actually tied one on and went out there and ended up till 3 a.m. having beers with everybody. And I was on stage for a panel at 8 a.m. It was a rough ride. But I missed you. Maybe we saw each other and just get a picture, but I missed you. I've learned to dial it back a notch, take it back, and actually that instance spawned my policy of no alcohol at conferences.
See, now you're no
Probably
fun.
a good thing.
Oh, it's fun, still plenty of fun, but that was a little bit much.
No, and it's kind of, to me, it's ironic because that's where I got to see and hear all of you at the same time, which was a blessing. But then I've got to see where you've gone from there, and it's like, it's really cool how you guys have gone and just, instead of like most people who will hang their hat on, this is who I am, this is what I've been through, and just keep telling it over and over and over at every conference. It's, you bring new stuff every time. And so I appreciate that. And it makes it worth going to and wanting to have you guys back on the shows, even, is because you always bring different information or updates to other information. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, I appreciate that from all three of you.
No problem.
It's all part of the service.
That's right. In service to all.
Going to the conferences and meeting people in the crowd was really life-changing. I would recommend it to anybody. Going to the conferences and kind of mingling with like minds really made a big difference in my life. You meet other people that are like-minded and working on the same stuff, and my life changed greatly just from the conference aspect of it, not from being on stage or anything else. But I'm just saying the people that I've met, and you get together and trade it, information, and you stay in touch, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'm working on this is happening, and it changed my life. So I would recommend that to everybody. I always say the conferences are all about the audience, not the speakers.
That's
I'll
the real
agree.
show, isn't it? That's the real show, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. You don't meet
And-
people like that every day. We're spread out.
No, and I will also add to that, Tony, that you got most people will have persona for on screen or on stage, and then they're completely different when they're not on stage or on screen. And you three are exactly authentically who you are on screen, on stage, and off screen, off stage. And so I admire that. And I think that's, why I enjoy having you guys on my show so much, is because you're relatable. You're, eager, and you're like excited to come on and like talk and share things, and not just be, oh, where's your view count, or where's your audience count, or what am I gaining from this? It's you just are like, yeah, I want thank you for sharing the information out and helping getting it out. And I just, I admire that, because it's so rare these days of, we live in the adage of don't meet your heroes, but yet you guys broke that, because it's like meeting you guys was like actually a blessing and not that script that other people follow. So thank you for that.
There's some conferences you go to, including GSIC, where they have security guards and they keep the speakers away from the people. And I'm like you, Tony and Alex. I just go out and commingle, even though sometimes, well, it might not be safe. It's like, it's totally safe. I feel great around everybody that goes there. At Contact in the Desert, where I'm going to go in a week from now, they have it on the ticket. You're not allowed to speak to the speakers. You see them walking by, and only speak if you're spoken to. So only if a speaker says hello, you can say hi back. But
Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy. I think it's totally fine to do it any way that the speaker wants to. I've never felt threatened at any of these conferences. I don't think you guys have either. And it's just, there was that one person who felt like she was getting death threats all the time, but she's gone away. So,
well, to speak on that, I mean, the conferences are varied. And so the different vibe, different speakers, different locations, and different audience, even in the same state, there'd be completely different experience. And there are, I ain't gonna lie, there are crazies out there. I've had death threats. I've had stuff like that happen. And when I first started doing it, I think I was very naive and fell victim to a lot of things. And now I still want to meet everybody. Like I said, the crowd is the main attraction. I just do it a little bit smarter. Like I said, no alcohol, no being vulnerable. Make sure you have friends with you. You're in public. And so what we're doing is something that draws people's attention. And some people, who knows what it is, jealousy or hatred, but they're out there, man. There are people that tried and failed, and they want to show up, and they got nothing better to do with their life than to make it difficult for people to share just the truth, just to share. I'm honored anytime somebody asks me to tell my story, right? Because it's hard to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow. And I think Alex is the same way, but the conferences are, you have to be smart. You have to be smart about it.
yeah.
I wanted to say that, a lot of people treat this as a business, and even though it is, it's their passion is to share the story. It's to share the knowledge. It's to share the history. It's to share the experiences, because if anybody can relate to any part of the story, it alters their perspective. Okay, it changes them. It changes their perspective, and it opens a window so that they can begin to see more. Something that Tony just mentioned about people feeling threatened. When I first started this in the 90s or the 80s, 90s, it was a very different scene than today. I mean, I can't even tell you. And, all this free love and the hippie movement and all this. Guys, I got to tell you, there were so many people in the box, and they did not want to come out of the box. That box was their heaven, it was their hell, and they would defend both of those things. You were not allowed inside that box. And whatever the belief systems were, whatever the religion was, whatever who their identity was, everything had to stay within inside that box. And you did not dare infringe on that box, or you were a conspiracy theorist, you were a devil worshiper, the bowel movement of Lucifer himself. You can't believe the shit that was said. But it seems like we still have the woke side, but it seems like a lot more people have really loosened up. And it's not only that they're hearing, but they're also actually listening now. And there is a huge difference between hearing and listening. I got 4 boys. My daughter gets it once. The boys repeat over and over and over, re-rinse over and over and over. Okay? So they hear, but they don't listen. There are a lot more people now finally listening. And I know it's because of you three and the others that are out there who are not present with us today. And that's because we persevered. We refused to quit because we know how important this is.
Yep. Hey, speaking of listening, the very first time we met, Alex, you and I were sitting out on the picnic table at the Promise Revealed in Mount Shasta. We're just having a conversation like we are now. Next thing I look up, there's like 20 people listening in on our talk.
Yep.
But we're open like that. We like to share our information. You too, Tony. And I think it's great that people are interested in these subjects.
It turned into
exposure is upon us. We are at that phase where, like I said, at your Lifetime Achievement Award at GSIC, Alex, you've been vindicated. Everything you've said, it's now coming to fruition, and nobody's going to call you conspiracy theorists anymore.
No, but Nutjob is still around. That still has some life in it.
Well, you got to have that, otherwise you'd never survive.
Yeah, I could actually. I could survive. Because my kids hear this shit.
His life with coffee one time.
My kids hear this stuff, and that's that's why I never spoke in Colorado for so long, is because when I was raising the kids here, you don't want your kids to hear this stuff. You want them to figure it out for themselves,
Right.
And because the first time they come home and say, "Dad, somebody's dad thinks you're a crackpot," then you got to go into it, and you don't want to go into it with the kids. You want them to figure it out themselves. First they got to figure out who they are, or at least some semblance of who they are. You don't want to fill their head with all this other stuff. So anyway,
I was pretty open with my kids, but they went through it. Like they had people confront them at school. Hey, we saw your dad on YouTube, and they, it wasn't pleasant. There was a price to pay.
Yeah,
for just telling the truth, for telling it how I see it. I always say I'm not going to argue with anybody over my testimony. I've come up with some proof and stuff, but my kids went through the same thing, and it was sobering after, because I thought I was just doing the right thing and nothing. I thought I was safe from anything happening, and my kids came home. They were picking on me, Dad. They said they saw you on YouTube and blah blah. So, there's a price, man, for it. But
it's hard to protect them 24/7.
And it's sad that happens, because, we live in a world where we're supposed to have free speech, freedom to be who you want to be.
America. That's just America. Only America has free speech, guaranteed. That's not the rest of the world.
Not in Germany. I was just there.
Yeah.
Telling these guys backstage before we came on that people came up to me after my talk about the German U-boats going under the ice in Antarctica. They said if a German person gave that talk, they'd be getting a knock by the secret police the next day. Even Frank Jacob, who is also a presenter there, a filmmaker that lives in Germany, he's like, I couldn't have given that talk. They'd harass me or maybe even arrest me. I'm like, what did I do? I'm just a researcher telling you my files. Then they came up and they said, leave it to an American to come to Germany to tell us our history.
Jawohl, jawohl.
Ausgezeichnet.
Well, I was looking up, they didn't treat Galileo great.
No,
they didn't.
When he discovered Jupiter's moons and that sun was in the center of the solar system, Galileo was met with a lot worse, I think, than what we've been. So it's the same kind of stuff. You're presenting new information, especially Alex presented it decades ago. I remember seeing Alex on CNN back in the early 90s and thinking, yes, finally. Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
Somebody's finally telling us what's going on.
Yeah, look at CNN now.
Yeah. It was Ted Turner back then, I think. But
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
He was at least mediocre open. So anyway.
So I actually have an interesting question for all three of you because you each bring different perspectives to this. Where do you see the disclosure movement today and where it's going? Where do you want to see it go? I know, Tony, you've already hit a little bit on that, but I'll give you room to expand if you want after Alex or Brad, or if you want to go first.
Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, Brad.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Brad.
Alex, why don't you start?
No. No. Please be my guest.
All right, Alex says. I think we're in an extraordinary period of time right now. The president is making tweets about disclosure. We have the Department of War releasing 146 files less than 2 weeks ago and saying there's a lot more to come. Trump even did this bizarre Truth Social tweet of him walking side by side with an alien, which to me was clearly AI generated. But they're putting it into the mainstream narrative, and I think that's fantastic. In fact, one of those 146 files that was just dropped 2 weeks ago, I had to scramble to get it into my presentation in Germany because it said that the Germans, in some declassified documents from the FBI, that the Germans were working on backward engineering UFO technology in 1943 in the Black Forest region of Germany, crafts that could go 1,500 miles per hour and could go to an altitude of 40,000 feet, essentially making them spaceships. And so this is, again, vindication that all this stuff we've been talking about and showing slides and pictures at our talks of, for me, German flying saucers. I mean, all this stuff is now coming to fruition, that the Germans had worked on a whole bunch of different crafts. And they're very similar technology to the submarine technology that they had, which was also just as advanced as their UFO technology. You know, they could drop a submarine from Hamburg and go all the way to Antarctica without ever surfacing and no air bubbles, virtually undetectable the whole way. And they had submarines that were so big that they could smuggle out all of their all of those backward engineered UFO craft they were working on. So all this stuff is finally coming together into this big mosaic that the Germans had this technology, and then a lot of their scientists came over to America and Project Paperclip and continued this research with our own black programs.
Brad, didn't a significant portion also go to Russia? Because, the Russians built the Cosmospheres, their version of the UFO.
Yeah, they sure did. They didn't want to. They preferred to come to America, but even the UK got a few as well of those paperclip scientists. But we by far got the best, like Werner von Braun and Hermann Oberth, who at his retirement party was asked, how did Germany get so advanced so quickly with technology? And his quote, which I start the chapter of the Nazis in Antarctica in my book, he said, "We cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped, and we have been helped by the people of other worlds." So right there admitting that they got backward engineered technology, but also probably were working with ET groups like the Andromedeans, who the Vril women were telepathically communicating with right after World War I. And two of the speakers at this German conference I was just at, Frank Jacob and his partner Tanya Mittelfer, they found the old hunting lodge where the Vril women were doing their telepathic transmissions. So it's still there, and all this history is now coming out, and the German people are just, I think they're really thrilled with finally not being seen as the aggressor or the villain in all this, but the purveyors of very advanced technology first on. And I think if history were to tell the truth, the Germans beat us to the moon by decades.
Yeah.
And they've also been to Mars and other locations. And Tony, I know you've had some experience with them. They're not always the nicest people in outer space, but their technological prowess was second to none 100 years ago.
Everything you're saying, Brad, kind of tickles me, because for years I've put up with a lot of my testimonies that there's Germans on Sirius. I don't know if you guys can hear my rooster; he keeps crowing. But my testimonies that there's, and through my book Series Colony Cavalier, that it's ran by Germans or people that came they identify as the Deutsch culture, people that came from that part of Europe and had access to space long ago. And many researchers, you mentioned Frank Jacob, who really was skeptical of me in Sedona, and we became friends because he thought I was going to bash Germany or the Germans and make it sound, but he still stuck up for that end, that there's no evidence that Germans were up there. And Richard Dolan really painted me badly, saying that there's no evidence of any Germans in space, or that any Germans had any kind of space program. And so the stuff that you're saying right now just makes me feel good. It's just validating, because I put up with a lot of flack of that, and I said, look, I just put down what I remember. I've got a ton of corroborating evidence that goes, but so that's why I keep talking about it. And to see it coming out now is wonderful, really. There's a real disconnect, though, I got to tell you guys, because I know that they're going to give us fake experts. So we've been at decades. Yeah. All of us, we've put in the sweat equity, but they're going to give us people that just came out of nowhere. They're going to be a so-called expert, and it's going to be a talking head talking to another talking head, and you can see it coming. But good. It's good. The idea is that disclosure is good for everybody. The technology that's coming may or may not be a great thing with AI where it's at, but we'll go through this. We'll enter into a new age of mankind, and if it's a problem, we'll solve it.
Tony, that's a really good point about they're going to bring us the so-called experts. And that's because, they have this habit of control and wanting to control the narrative no matter what it is. And, we still have, I'm not sure where this is at, but, we still have the Dark Space Fleet and the Earth Alliance Space Fleet, indigenous to Earth. And I'm not sure that that's been resolved yet. Maybe the fact that the agency went into Tulsi Gabbard's storage room and took boxes of documents and just said, we're taking these back without, any conversation whatsoever. is an indication that they're very concerned because their fingerprints are all over a lot of bad things that have happened here on the planet, such as some of these programs that you were stuck in that involve other corporations, etc. I won't get into that. That's your thunder. But what's going to be interesting is when they may just feed us with all this bullshit, which is what I expect actually. And once the ETs themselves come forward, all their narratives will just go away, because the reason they're here is because of humanity, because of who we are and our genetic lineages to so many of the different races. They're not here to protect the deep state or anybody else. They're here to say, hey, humanity, wake up. You have cousins, you are family. You've been through a very rough time. Your civilization has been through a very rough time. And, we want to help you get on your feet so that you can become part of the galactic family. And that's going to be interesting. It's going to be quite the dance to see how they manage this, especially that, since for the last 75, 80 years, they've lied about all of it. Every single thing they've lied about, and killed people, imprisoned people, put them in mental institutions, yada, yada, yada. And I guess the point of them trying to control the narrative is to set out we don't find out about that. That we forget that they did all this shit to so many other people. And then made a deal, give us tech and you can have some of us, which absolutely went down. So, and then there's Dulce, what was going on under Dulce. They don't want us to know. It's going to be interesting to see how much they tell us.
I have to agree, and we actually have a question for you guys along this topic in the chat room. Dan Guest 16 or 18F is saying Russia. Anybody here read or know of the leaked documents Project Orion?
That just got leaked? No, I'm not aware of it yet.
Are they Russian documents?
I believe that's what they're saying.
Project Orion. So there's a researcher named Paul Stonehill. You might Google him and look for him, and he covers everything Russian. And that's where I would go in that direction if it was a Russian ufology. But I'm unaware of it.
Yeah, when we talk about Russia comes up a lot, and I notice watching television where they we can't believe everything we're seeing, but a lot of shows are disclosing things where they always will make Russia the villain. Like, oh, Russia's trying to steal this. Russia is trying to corrupt our agents to do this. And then if that fails, then it's, oh no, it's China. Why is it like India and all the other countries that are in space are never brought up, do you think? Why is it always their playbook to go Russia or China? Alex?
We have had a war-based economy. It was all about war. It was all about the military-industrial complex. And you have to have enemies. You even have to create your own enemies in order to sustain a military-industrial complex. So that's what they would do. They would literally create enemies, and they would build up all these things, and then they would send in specific agencies or teams to stir up trouble, to overthrow governments, destabilize regions of the world, to justify all the money that was going to these NGOs and the military-industrial complex. And behind many of those walls, they were building a lot of this extraterrestrial technology or reverse engineering. I mean, just look at Philip Corso's The Day After Roswell. He flat out tells you, and look at all the wars and everything that's been going on since Roswell, that incident. the conflicts. It's been constant over and over and over again. And it was feeding, and this money was all feeding the military industrial complex so that behind all these walls, they could build all this technology or reverse engineer it and create Solar Warden and the TR3s, TR4s. You know, they knew what they were doing. I mean, this was a very sophisticated plan, but they had many firewalls to make sure we never knew anything about it, or if we did, you know, the system or the media would come down on top of you and say you're a kook, quack, conspiracy theorist, yada yada yada, all those things, and basically shame you into shutting up.
Yeah, they have a pretty long list of things they can do to you to get you to be quiet. It's a lot more than just shame.
Yeah. Yeah, they can approach you at a mailbox and give you a list of everybody you know, including every member of your family, and say, if you don't shut the fuck up, they're gone.
Yeah, Alex, I remember you telling the story of being visited by the Men in Black when you're just getting your mail.
At a mailbox, etc., on Baseline Road in Boulder, Colorado.
They were not very friendly.
Oh my God, they were stone cold.
Wow.
They were stone cold, scared the shit out of me.
Do you think they were hybrids or not?
They wore sunglasses. I didn't really get a chance to see their eyes.
Interesting.
And when I asked, who are you? He goes, you need to worry about yourself and everybody on this list. That's what they said. So you will shut the fuck up. And I remember I told John Robinson about it. I didn't tell my wife about it for like 2 weeks. I had to sit with it because I had sent out a message to Mornay, and I didn't know what to do. You know, we had just had Nicholas, my firstborn son. So, and you know, that's a game changer. You know, that's a total game changer right there. So they waited. Maybe they waited until the baby was born, you know, to then approach me and just say, look, dude. So, and it was 6 years before I said another word. And then I had a contact from Mornay, and he said, you can go back and speak now. And I said, well, what about those guys? He said, they're all dead. That's what he said. They're all dead. And I didn't ask any questions. I'm like, okay, it's safe. He goes, yes. So it's a journey, isn't it, Tony?
I'll say. Like I said, we're gonna move into like a overdrive of disclosure. I think the information that we've shared, all of us here have shared, in the first stages of disclosure, they'll just pretend like it didn't happen. It'll be later down the road when people backtrack, look back and scrutinize. You know, it may be a few years, it may be decades before they look back on our information and say, wow, this is extremely relevant. No kidding. All what these guys have been saying all along is out there. Once people get past the initial shock that we're not alone and the ETs are out there and the technology is what it is. And my big curiosity is, are they gonna admit that they've been participating for 100 years up there? Are they gonna act like it's brand new? Oh my God, look at that. You know, like which angle are we gonna get publicly?
Right.
Right.
The narrative. Yeah. Brad, what do you think?
Well, they're definitely controlling the narrative. A lot of commentators on the latest data dump has said it's been a big nothing burger because a lot has been retracted. But some of them are just gems, like the one about the Germans backward engineering this UFO technology back in the 1940s. And so it just corresponds with a lot that we've been talking about and that we've known for many years now, and vindicating a lot of us. But really, we need to look beyond controlling the narrative, because that's really what this data dump is all about. I've heard, and maybe you guys can tell me what you've heard, that basically the more benevolent ETs have basically told the governments of the world, all the leaders, look, we're going to make ourselves known very soon, as in 2027, whether you like it or not. So I think a lot of this is them just getting ahead of the narrative and saying, okay, all right, well, I guess we got to tell the population that we know, but they're never doing it in such a way that they're going to be liable for lying to the public, for example, or hoarding this technology. They're always doing it, well, this is what we have, but it's alleged and we're not really sure. That nobody's making any concrete statements, because after this disclosure and these official documents, people are saying, oh, wow, we've been visited by extraterrestrials. First question will be, wow, what do they look like? And what are they doing here? And then the second question is, how did they get here? And when you get deep into the how they got here, then you're getting into free energy and possibly even time travel technology and a lot of things that I don't think the government really wants to talk about just yet. So that's getting ahead of the narrative and keeping the really important stuff bottled up.
And it's kind of interesting, like we're talking, disclosure and everything, and how we say, like, it's in the movies if you know what you're looking at. Yeah. And when Alex said they were wearing sunglasses, the movie from the 80s, They Live, came to mind, where if you put the sunglasses on, you could see them for who they really were. And wondering, could that be why the Men in Black are wearing the sunglasses? Is they can see us for who we really are? Is that a real thing?
Can I address that? Back during the early Vietnam War, they were creating night vision glasses, goggles, and somebody had put this pair together, with all these multiple lenses on it, and it worked, but it worked too well. And there were helicopter missions, there were flight missions that were going on at night, and they would turn these things on, and they could see demons and dimensional beings flying next to the helicopter. Okay, and they started shooting at these things because they didn't know what they were looking at, and they were terrified. And they only did a few missions with these goggles before they decided to pull them. And I know that there's a word for them, these special lenses that gives you the ability to see into dimensions. And maybe one of you two guys can remember it. I'm old. But that was the premise of the movie, They Live, because they knew that was a real story, and they incorporated that into the glasses. What's a Roddy Dowell or something like that, McDowell, where they could see, put on the glasses and you could see who was human, who wasn't.
They Live.
Yeah, They Live. The movie They Live. That's where they got the idea, because this story was out there for a very, very short time before they buried it. Hey, Brad, wasn't the Vril Society in the 30s also experimenting? It was private, the Vril, VRIL. Weren't they also in the mid 30s working on anti-gravity flight?
You bet. Yeah, even sooner than that. Right after World War II, they started convening in this hunting lodge near Berchtesgaden, Germany. And because it's such an important part about how Germany got so advanced so quickly, I have a lot of information about the Vril and the Thule Society. And they were able to telepathically transmit plans for flying craft and for these kind of energy devices, free energy devices, in the 1920s. And it was the very famous German scientist Victor Schauberger who took a look at those plans And he said, this is actionable intelligence. We can take it back to our laboratory and reproduce this. So that's really when the Germans got started all this. And then they recovered a downed UFO in the Black Forest region of Germany in 1933. And then Mussolini had a nearly intact UFO that went down in the Lombardy region in the late 1930s, and he turned that over to the German scientists too. So they had a lot to work with before World War II even started.
Right, right. Yeah, I wonder if we'll get any of that history, you know?
Yeah, well, with the Vril women, that's interesting. It's come to my attention recently that Marie Orsich, one of the Vril women, is still alive down in Antarctica, that they have the med beds and this anti-aging technology, and she's still kicking it. She's still around.
Wow.
She's like the grand dame down there, I guess, and still very telepathic. And they communicated with the Andromedeans. And so there was that connection, because got to remember in the 1920s, long before the fascism and the Third Reich started, that Germany was the most technologically adept country in the world. And so if anybody can handle this kind of information and work towards the betterment of humanity, that they will. But then when the Thule Society took it over and started trying to weaponize this technology, that's when the Andromedeans cut them off and said, all right, that's enough. We've given you too much. So it always tends to go to the dark side, which is the weird thing about planet Earth. You know, it's like you always got to weaponize it, don't you? Why not just use it for peaceful purposes?
Yeah, it's the control pyramid. When did the Aldebarans come into play? You keep saying the Andromedans, but it was my understanding they were talking to Aldebaran.
Oh, you know, I think you're right. It is. It was Aldebaran.
It's a much shorter commute.
Same as yours.
It is. It's a very short commute. Yeah,
short commute compared to Andromeda.
You know, plus they knew us.
Right,
They knew us very well, because the Aldebarans were working for Enlil and the Anunnaki as part of Giza intelligence. So they were already very familiar with us. So they knew exactly how to approach us.
Well, we have a question in the chat room, since we're talking about Germany, that they ask it to Brad and Tony, but Audrey Dixon 5776 is asking, and Alex, I'll let you chime in too, your thoughts. What does Brad and Tony know about the inter-Germans versus the space Germans? Same or different?
One and the same, I'd say.
Same thing. They're the same unit.
Often operates out of Antarctica too.
Antarctica was referred to as the High Command, and so all of the individual colonies and bases, they might not even know about each other. There may be several inner Earth cities that don't have the knowledge of secret cities and colonies, but they all report to Antarctica or the High Command, and that was what I remember back in my time. So that was how it was. So yeah, I would say once there's an inner Earth settlement, we tend, from people that I've worked with in the past, that, you know, I've worked with long-term memory recovery, but pretty much once you're in that security envelope of being in a secret city inside the Earth, there are ETs there. So it's the same as the space program. Their colonies the same as they are out in the solar system and beyond. So it's the same level of secrecy. Just
like if you were to go to the Mars colonies, it's aliens and humans working side by side. And Dulce, same thing.
Yes.
And as well as in Montauk. You know, I was just in Montauk for a conference in New York last October, and we went out to Montauk Point. And there were reports of the Montauk boys like Stuart Swerdlow and others. They'd be working and doing their projects, and along comes a 7.5 foot tall reptilian walking down the hall, and there's, whoa, okay, got them here too. So in some of these secret programs, yeah, you're right, Tony, they all work side by side, and they're usually pretty well aware of each other being there.
You know, the
Yeah,
Chaldeans have records of working with the Titans, who the Chaldeans considered to be from Venus. Um, and they would work with them in their councils and their meetings, and when they were drafting laws and things of that nature, that they would ask for the input of the Titans, you know, for ways to make their cultures better, more solid, more give it more longevity. And what's really interesting is that if you and all of this is Arabic history that has been mostly ignored. What's really interesting is that when you get to the Greek stories and the Greek myths, they refer to the Titans in a very different way than Venetians, if that's even true. I don't know, but you can go all the way back to the Chaldeans and their ancient scrolls and scripts, and they're talking about working with ET. So it's been something that many previous civilizations to us have been doing. It's just that when we get to the mud flood of 1805, 1806, and then 1811 to 1816, that's where we lose so much of our history. It's just gone, buried. And that's a whole nother topic, which I was talking to Brad about earlier before we went live. That's why we have all these incredible cities and monuments 20 to 22 feet buried underground. It's not an accident. They did it intentionally. So.
That's really interesting. And I'm kind of wondering, when we look at history and, we look at who's aligning with who, what was it that drew the Vril to the Germans instead of, the Russians or the Chinese? I wonder what was it that
the Vril wasn't it in Bavaria anyway?
Yeah. The women were all German.
Yeah.
To begin with.
The University of
telepathic communication with Aldebaran.
Sorry, I don't want to talk over anybody, but everybody knows a lot about this subject, obviously. But the University of Munich had what considered psychic ability legitimate. And that's what we're missing out of all of our academia now, even though, I see Jessica Jones, a well-known remote viewer in the chat, and other people that are familiar with remote viewing. There's a lot of people in our community watching this show that are psychics that do readings. And I teach remote viewing weekly. I'm in 6 remote viewing groups this week. And we're doing all kinds of other things. That's not my dog. But so psychic ability is very easy to prove. It's water under the bridge. But our academia purposely hides it. The Germans did not. They encouraged it and they wrapped their science around it. And so that it was easy for them to accept the information. So that's what happened. I'll bet everybody around the world was getting psychic hits on the information from ETs. I bet it happens all the time. The University of Munich paid attention.
All right. And so Dan goes further with it and says, why did the Vril ladies not cut their hair? Does the hair actually act like an antenna?
It's also quite attractive.
But then there was another comment who said that the Native American trackers also wanted to have their hair long. And when the white man cut their hair off, they lost their ability to track. So they let them grow it long again. It's kind of like, remember the old story of Samson and Delilah? Samson would say the source of his power was his long hair, and Delilah then cut off his hair and made him weak again. So maybe there is something to that. I don't know. What do you think, Alex? What happened when you had your big head of hair?
I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But I am worried about going totally bald. Then I'm just going to be a rock. So I don't know. I never really had it long, you know.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
well, I was in the corporate world. I was in aerospace. You can't look like a hippie.
No.
So,
No.
I just want to say all of the people that we're talking about, the Indian trackers and the Vril Society, the long hair, they didn't have the quality of coffee that we have nowadays to make up for our short hair.
copy that.
Well, maybe I should grow my hair back long again. Maybe I'll start tapping into my psychic abilities. Take your courses, Tony. You can help train.
Everybody can do it, and even people that are skeptical that join within a month, I get them up and running, and they're shocked every week by how well they do. It's amazing. So I went down the remote viewing research path just trying because I uncovered the receipts of the first program that I was in during the 20 MEC. And there was a lot of proof there that I presented on, and the more I researched it and what I remembered going through, the memories would come back. And I physically went there, and once I stood there and could smell the place, I got a lot of memories. And it was remote viewing and psychoenergetics research. And so I began to do it in my groups, and we were onto something. And now it's progressed. It's quite a bit. I have 2 professional companies that do remote viewing. They're very successful. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to shut up about remote viewing. So, like now there's a point where remote viewers get to the brass tacks, and then you see them just disappear and jump behind a paywall. And that's because you get to a point where you can actually really do some effective things. So
talking about, with everything going on with the remote viewing right now, do you feel, Tony, that remote viewing is kind of being overused, and that's, or everybody is like wanting to claim they are when they're not, and so it's washing it out, so it's losing its credibility?
Absolutely. I feel it's being dissipated by people that are labeling it by the wrong thing. And I don't want to take anything away from people that are psychically prone or psychically clairvoyant, but the actual protocols of remote viewing are not being used as much as people are claiming. And so it takes something away. So I've read books by some heavy hitting remote viewer, famous remote viewers. I read their book. That's what I do with my spare time is study the phenomenon. And there are books that if you read the book from some very well-renowned remote viewing teachers, if you read the book, you would come away from it thinking you'll never do it. So they've buried it. You can remote view, but not now. And so there's a lot of that going on. And the fact is, we all have the phenomenon. The phenomenon explains psychic ability and ESP across the board. It's the same science. There are a couple of brainwave states that work with it. I just did a remote viewing retreat here in Oakhurst, California last week. And it was a great hit. We did a bunch of science. We did environmental remote viewing. We did a lot of things and put a lot of pieces in place to the methods that I use. But the actual protocols of remote viewing are not adhered to by everybody that claims it. Let me see what, Jessica, there's a difference between trained RVers and people turning into things psychically. That's exactly right. So, and I don't want to take anything away from people that are very clairvoyant and very psychic. So everybody is. Some people are gifted naturally, but remote viewing has a protocol and it has things to be expected, and it's a science, and it's provable. That's what I mean. That's the big exclamation point. So we can prove that psychic ability exists. And when we talk about the science of it, everybody's got a opinion about the science of it. But we're like ancient man that watched the birds fly by. We know things can fly. We see the birds and the bugs fly, and we know things can fly, but we couldn't do. We tried with our wings and couldn't fly. Ancient man experienced this. It wasn't until they understood aerodynamics that we could build a machine that could fly. And so we're the same way with the psychic ability. We can see it happen. We can remote view and know that it happens. We're not everybody. There's a huge debate. I believe in membrane theory. And so the science and my exercises, a lot of experiments I've done dovetail into that perfectly. And we can lean into it with peripherals and machines and environments. You can construct an environment and get higher scores. But we're like ancient man watching the birds fly by and wondering how it happens.
And missing time is asking a funny question, but it's something that I've often wondered myself, because they say like psychics, can you get the lotto numbers, and it's a running joke of,
You can.
if you got the numbers, would you get them? And he's asking, can you actually remote view the results of the lottery to pick the numbers?
Well, you could research the founder of the Mobius Labs, Stefan Schwartz, and in his book, Opening to the Infinite, something like that. It's laying around here somewhere. They did correctly pick the lottery numbers using remote viewing. And the problem they ran into with all the investors was that they narrowed it down to about 2,500 tickets out of 2 million. So they were able to narrow it down into doing a method. But when they got to the store to buy the 2,500 tickets, they ran out of time before the lottery happened. And they didn't buy the correct ticket in time. So their square that they picked was correct, but they couldn't physically purchase the tickets in the amount of time. So that experiment didn't cash in, but they did correctly pick the square. The plan worked exactly how they narrowed it down from 2.5 million probabilities to 2,500, with something like 80 remote viewers involved in the project. And so, yeah, that's how people are doing the forecasting. And I'll shut up now before I'm already in enough trouble with the CIA.
Well, and there's an interesting question too for you, Tony. I know you've talked about this somewhat. They're asking, since you blew the whistle publicly, have you ever revisited with the ETs? Have they come back since you become
Same old
the
crew?
whistle?
No. Other ETs, yes. Same crew? No.
And so, as we're talking about this,
I love being cryptic. So,
and I have a feeling
I
you're
think I
being
can
cryptic for a
decide
reason. Yeah.
and let you guys take over. I'll just give it a yes or no, and then let you guys pass the baton.
I figured you were being cryptic because you were like, I don't want to say, and I wasn't going to push. So that's why I was like, okay, moving on.
Look, I have poked the hornet's nest a lot in the last few years, and I've been reprimanded, and I don't want to make it worse. So I'm hoping to live a long life, and I would love to, but disclosure is underway, and my testimony is in my books and what I've done, and so it's in history. And I think, like I said, I think there's going to be a disclosure, and I think my information isn't going to be relevant for another 25 years after, when people could look back at my book historically and go, oh wow, this is useful, now because it's history of what happened up there. But as far as staying in front of it and fighting, like, you guys got to listen to me, they're mean, I don't have that kind of inspiration. And I really regret that my experience was so bad in an illegal program, because I wish I had great news to report about I wish I could say, man, they were great. It was up there and they were all amazing people. And it was all, because I really do, because there are good people up there in these programs, even the dark programs. They're good, they're people. And that, like, there's we're at war with Iran right now. There's great people that live in Iran. They're good people. It's, they're not evil. It's not evil across the board. And these programs are the same dynamic. So I was a victim in a sense of the technology and the secrecy. And I wish I didn't have to be such a downer, because I'm very happy for disclosure. And now that we're talking about the genie out of the bottle, it doesn't matter what lies they tell us, because once it starts, there's no stopping it. But just like Alex said, the benevolence are going to come down. Once it starts, there's no putting it back in the bottle.
Right. And Tony, one thing I remember, and it's fresh on my mind because we had an episode recently towards the end of last month, that when I asked you, when I said, I'm looking at bringing the positive out of experiences in the SSP and everything, I remember how you kind of lit up and you were like, yes, there are positives. It's not all negative. And so that's something we need to focus on with everything in disclosure. Is everything may appear to be dark and gloomy, but there are positives coming from it that will outshine that, and that's what we need to focus on.
Absolutely. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not. It's not all doom and gloom. Like I said, if disclosure brings us problems, we'll solve it. And you have to have that mindset.
And there was a question earlier about hybrids, and I'm just curious your guys' thoughts of, as we're talking about disclosure, what role do you feel hybrids will play, and will they just announce themselves and then fade away into time because they did their act and that was that? Or what do you see for hybrids, if anything?
We're hybrids. We're hybrids. We're hybrids. We got the genes of 22, 24 different races in us. We're hybrids. So it's great. Hybrids are gonna be awesome. They're gonna be fantastic. They're gonna change the world. Hey, Tony, you, me, and Brad have just been taken off the CIA's Christmas card list. I just thought you'd want to know.
Well, I was soundly aware that I wasn't on it in the first place, and
Well, I'll tell you, I was just flying back 2 days ago, and first time this ever happened to me, I got pulled over after I checked my laptop through. They pulled me into a room. They said, open your laptop, which I did, and they just kind of looked at it and okay. Then I go and sit in the lounge, and somebody else comes back and takes me into a room and says, we want to look at your laptop. And I was like, did they know my presentation just last week? They didn't say anything about that, and they let me go. But that kind of rattled me a little bit. Like I think we're being watched and tracked. Yeah. They know who we are, and they know what we're up to. And I kind of want to see if you're going to give them any attitude. And of course, I didn't. And they let me fly.
No, it's their cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally their cloud.
No, I am fully aware that I am on the radar, for things I've done in the past, things I've said and things I've done. I'm fully aware of this. And I mean, I could go on and on about another show, but like I said, I feel like I've contributed to history and I've answered everybody that asked to tell me what happened to you, Tony. And moving forward, I know that I poked the hornet's nest, and I'm choosing my words these days rather than blabbermouthing it all out.
But no more Christmas cards for you.
Sorry. Definitely not.
No.
They might give me a Christmas visit.
It
won't be Santa either. It won't be Santa. But Tony, your place in the Smithsonian has been assured.
I will see. Yeah, well, you know what though, Alex? Let me ask you this while we got you here, and Brad even. Yeah. I mean, that's not what you started out to do.
No, still isn't what I'm going to do.
I knew that what I remembered, not many people knew, and I knew it was important that people learned what I remembered. I was blown away by when I got my memories back, and I knew that it would be valuable to people, and I just wanted to share it. And I was in a lucky, fortunate groove where people asked me it. People wanted to hear it, and it's been made a mockery of lately. So there was a lot of people coming out with really bad testimony, and to dissipate, and for whatever reason. But I mean, I didn't get into it for money or attention. I thought I was going to do a couple shows and just go back to work, sanding the floor. That's really what I thought was going to happen. And here I am now, a decade later, and it's like my entire life is different. But what about you, Alex? You had a profession, and Brad, I don't know. I think you were always after this.
I did. My reason at first was because I had been told about the reptilian race and the children, about the missing kids and what was happening to them. They were either being taken off or taken under. And in Westchester County, which is where I grew up, I believe it was 1974, 75, 76, 77, 78. There were more than 5,000 children that just vanished. And a couple of the kids that I went to high school with, their siblings were gone. No one had any idea what had happened. It was as if they had just disappeared. And during conversations with the A's, they eventually very, very slowly told me what was happening. And then when I was on Mornay's ship, he turned on this holographic machine and he showed me one of the reptilians, the Draco. And I was just like, oh my God. And then he said, this is where the children were going, you know, and I thought I was doing everybody a favor. And it's interesting. I had a former CIA, a former FBI, New York State, and Illinois State trooper encourage me to keep talking. But everybody else said, shut up. They're going to fucking kill you. Just shut up. So, and here we are. We're still having to deal with that issue, except now it's 800,000 children a year just from the United States that disappear. And they're going somewhere.
Yeah. And not coming back in many
Probably
cases.
Probably not. So
well, my position is a little bit different than you guys because Alex, you're an experiencer. Tony, you were in the programs. I'm just a straight researcher. I just look at this stuff because I'm really, really interested in it. And I follow the rabbit hole and just let the research take me where it's going to take me with no real agenda. I just want to know the truth. And so that's gotten me down the rabbit hole, but I know I'm also being monitored. My computer's been hacked in real time. I was showing my lawyer, of all people, happened to be by me. I'm like, look at this. I try to write an email and then it just turns into gibberish. And he's like, wow, that someone is messing with you. So nobody said this was going to be easy. Nobody said it would be completely safe entirely. In fact, this is probably one of the most dangerous professions we could all be in. But I think we're team humanity. We want to see us get through this. And now that this small little drip of disclosure is becoming a pretty steady stream, it's good to be with guys like you that have a pretty good idea of what's going on out there and know that there's so much that has not been told to the human race. And there's even a breakaway civilization. There's humans that are living off planet who are part of our family, but they're going on a different timeline, a different trajectory. And I just think we have the right to know this. It's always been my motivating factor in this, is that the human race has a right to know. They're part of us as we are similarly part of the last Stone Age tribes that live in the Amazon and Papua New Guinea. I think, Tony, you and I were having this conversation in the hotel room once. It's just like, look at this period of time that we're living in. There are still people that live in these primitive tribes that are getting their dinner with a blow dart tonight. If they can catch a monkey, then they're going to eat. And then we've got a breakaway civilization living off planet. And then all the rest of us somewhere in between. So it's just, wow, what a period, this great awakening on Earth, and to have a role to play in this great unveiling. And I think it's quite an honor. And I've always looked at it that I'm just quite honored and pleasured to have been able to travel around the world and now to speak at conferences and write books and help people understand this very thorny subject, but it needs to be said, it needs to be done. And so glad to be here with you guys and help get the word out that we're living in very extraordinary times.
And you bring up an interesting point there, Brad, because I look at, where we are today with people, starting to question whether they should come forward, share their stories, share their experiences or not. So what advice do you guys have from your years or time of experience with it to help people do it in a safe way that they won't get overwhelmed or get lost in the shuffle, so to speak?
First I'd want to say this, and Brad just brought this point up. We're about the human race and humanity has a right to know, and yet the firewalls are by humans, part of our own civilization, that absolutely refuse to let this information be known. In fact, they would continue to block it when they themselves are fathers and mothers, grandparents, great grandparents. And you have to wonder, what in the world are they thinking, that where this is going to go, and the world that they're going to be leaving their children, their grandchildren, their great grandchildren? What are they thinking? Is this all for a fucking paycheck? It blows my mind that that's what this is about for some people. Either that, or they've been involved in, they have so many secrets they can never tell them. And okay, well then just get out of the way, keep your secrets, go somewhere and let humanity figure this out. It's bizarre. And as far as, what to tell people, you're going to be uncomfortable. There's no way to sugarcoat this. This is not going to be a walk in the park. And if anybody's telling you it is, they don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. This will not be a walk in the park. Even today, with everything going on, it's still not going to be a walk in the park, because we're blowing people's belief systems that maybe they didn't create, but have been fed down to them. And those belief systems have formed an ego and who they believe themselves to be. The minute you shatter that, okay, that illusion that they've been living under, people collapse, because now they don't know who they are, because everything they thought was real now rolls back and it's like, oops, sorry, it's not. You have been fooled. You have been played. And people don't handle change very well. Most people don't handle change well, which is why it's taking so long. I think it started with science fiction movies, and then other movies, and then war movies, and alien movies, underground, and alien invasion movies. It's been a slow roll so that people's psyche would be able to handle the real thing when they see it. Just my thoughts.
I want to say to anybody, like your question, anybody that has witnessed it, they're a whistleblower or an experiencer, and they want to tell people about it. When I first started, I met Rob Potter, who had passed away and dedicated his life to disclosure and sharing the things that happened to him in his youth, and then giving people a platform to share their experiences. I met him and had lunch, and this is before I ever did any interview or I was completely unknown. They were researching me. I met Rob for lunch, and he had a knack for interesting drinks. It was amazing. But he said, Tony, I said, you got any advice for me, man? Because I don't know what I'm doing here. Should I even talk about it? What's your advice? And he said, just tell the truth. You'll be okay. Just don't lie. Don't make up stuff to make it make sense. If you don't know, you don't know. And just tell the truth. And I see that when I said earlier, when I commented and said we've got testimonies that are crap. From what I see, these are people that had genuine experiences, but the urge to satisfy the crowd and connect dots that they don't exactly know makes the whole thing hard to swallow. So I see people that have a little bit of memory and a little bit of memory, or they know this or that, and they want to answer every single question. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. Just be truthful, and everything will be fine. That's my advice to anybody out there that's got their own testimony they'd like to share. Just be truthful. If you know it, you know it. If you don't know, you don't.
Rob Potter was such a great friend to all of us and gave us all a start. Your triumphant comeback, Alex, and boy, he's missed greatly. He passed a little over a year ago. And they're bringing back his conference called A Promise Revealed at the end of August up in Mount Shasta. Alex and I have both signed on as speakers, so we're going to be there for that. And these conferences are a really good way of bringing forth disclosure. And so for anybody who's thinking about coming out, you should test the water a little bit and just come to a conference and see that the people that are there, it's like a family reunion. We're all coming together, and these are people who have the same feelings as you. And well, I was at I think you were there too, Tony. There was a super soldier panel, and some people were coming out for the first time. They didn't even really want to. They didn't want to be on the panel. They didn't want to speak or anything. But I remember them being in the back row, and they were literally crying because there were people that were finally talking about this, and it was validating what they had been through. And one or two of them did volunteer at the end just to announce that they were in the programs and that it was a very difficult time. I mean, it's akin to torture what some of these people have been through in these programs, and their story needs to be told. And this is all part of the big disclosure, because we have been doing these programs for decades now, and people have been through this. And it's just like the children who have come out of it or been MK Ultra. I mean, you need some support, and that support are the people who are also speaking at the conferences. So that's what I would say, Michael, for those thinking about coming out, is just test the water a little bit, come to some of these conferences, talk to people like Tony and Alex and myself, and you'll see that we're very sympathetic to what people have to hear and say.
And you'll meet a lot of people like-minded. You'll meet a lot of like-minded people who are also on the journey just as you, and you'll meet people who are in different places on the journey. Some just starting, some advanced, and some who know probably more than we do as speakers, because they're just so prolific researchers. And they've been doing this for years and years and years. Some of them will be intelligence operatives, but their job is not to engage, just to take down the information and return it back to their source. But you meet all kinds of people, and Mount Shasta is an amazingly gorgeous place. It's just, there's the energy there is very special.
And we know these conferences have been infiltrated too. And there were even people at the Germany conference that you could pretty much tell were there listening in. We would play the game. Remember, Tony would say, "Spot the ball."
Who's the Fed?
So obvious.
Yeah,
like
spot
the
the
person
Fed.
that doesn't need to be there, that's asking all the stupid questions. Oh, you're going to go to Area 51? How are you going to get in? We didn't say we're going to Area 51. We're going to do a night watch in the town of Rachel. And so they reveal themselves, and I think it's kind of humorous because they come to all these conferences, but it said that they come to the conferences not to hear what we're talking about. They're coming to the conferences to see what we're not speaking about, because usually at these conferences, it is pretty cutting edge. You'll have people that are talk about free energy stuff, or how these ships travel to the planet Ceres, and how you got out there, Tony. I mean, all this stuff is really what they don't want us to hear, but we're talking about it anyways.
I like to think that I'm getting good at profiling them.
Yeah.
So, I've brushed shoulders with enough conferences that I'm starting to get good at it. I want to say something else about conferences in general, not anyone in specific, but the speakers on stage. If you follow it, a lot of people come to me and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe Tony's tell me what's going on here. These people are fighting." There's a lot of drama sometimes. And because we are infiltrated and influenced we get yes people. Like, I've had people influence and inject into my life and try to change it. And these are whatever you want to call it. But I want to say this, that you have to realize that, okay, by definition, if you lay eyes on an ET tonight or tomorrow, it's a traumatic event. You will be traumatized. You'll be in a state of shock, even if it's loving and benevolent. If they go, we're here, we're your family, and it's a beautiful thing. And a lot of people have I had traumatic interaction. But just the experience of taking out of our illusion of life is a trauma. And a lot of the speakers on stage are people that have dealt with great trauma. And so we can't look to them to be models of our citizenship. You know, like we see, they're just people on stage. And, you know, myself too, I've never claimed that I'm perfect. I'm not running for office. And I would never claim that I've never made mistakes, or that if you got to know me well enough, you wouldn't hate my guts. I'm a person with great flaws, and I've been through great trauma. And I found that with most of the speakers too. And you have to have some leeway for that these are people that have lived through terrible things across the board. Yeah, even if it's spectacular. And so you know, there are people that I've known that I don't speak to anymore, but that I still understand, you know, have their own challenges to deal with in life. And I don't have any hatred towards anybody, even people that have attacked me directly. I don't have hatred towards them. Like, we're trying to share our life's truth. And like, you got to hear it from people that have been traumatized. That's where we need, those are the issues that need to be known and addressed.
Right. And one thing I'll point out is, you know, you have to learn to use what resonates with you, which leads to discernment, because just because Brad is on stage, for example, talking, doesn't mean he's got the right information for me in that moment. Or Tony, you know, saying his story, it may not resonate with me in that moment. So don't attack them. Don't, you know, what they're saying, that doesn't make it not real. It's not your story. And so don't, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they expect the people on the stage to validate their story and to make them right. And when it doesn't happen, then they feel, oh, you're not legit because you didn't have what happened to me. And so that is something I'd like to say, you know, how do we, you know, teach that to people? But you can't. There is no way to tell someone, you know, do this and it'll lead to this great awareness and this great discernment ability. It has to be learned through experience.
Yep.
How it works is that we're all bridges. You'll approach someone and you'll listen to them, and you'll be fascinated for a lecture, 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 YouTube videos. And then what'll happen is you will form a basis of knowledge, and then you'll move to another speaker or another researcher. And that's simply how it works, because it is all frequency resonance. And that is exactly how it's supposed to work. None of us are supposed to be gurus. We're teachers, we're experiencers, and we're just sharing our knowledge and our experience with you. You are to take that information, put it wherever it is, absorb it, integrate it, and however you do that. And then you will find others down the road that have different types of information that you do resonate to. And what you need to do is just say, thank you for this, and then move on to the next, and then to the next, and then to the next. And, you know, because they say, the old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. That's what this is all about. It is nothing else than that, because this is not about us. This is, in fact, about you. We have been exactly where you are. For some of us 35 years ago, for some of you, 5, 10 years ago, or like Brad, 15, 20 years ago, maybe even longer. So the point is, we understand that part, and we expect you to move on when we've given you the information that you need. So, and when you start to teach your family, your loved ones, your children, it'll be the exact same thing. You will be a bridge for a period of time. And then once they figured it out, they will go somewhere else. And, because we're all teachers. We are all teachers. Some are good, some are so-so, some are fantastic. So, but nonetheless, we're all teachers and we're all bridges. So.
And we've seen the fakers come and go too. Truth resonates with people, and it's pretty clear who's fabricating, but who's also sometimes having a very cathartic experience by telling their story. It's like going to therapy sometimes for people that have these that have been in the programs and been on the verge of being tortured for years to be a part of that. And then, so when they have the opportunity to even hear other people, also experiencers who have gone through what they have, they can have emotional discharge. But by far, I think most of the people that come to these conferences are just the curious type that just want to learn. I've had many times people taking notes at our conferences, you guys too. They just want to get this information and pick up a book and meet the speaker. I think it's a great opportunity for people to then put the name to the face and then have the opportunity to also have a one-on-one talk with them if you're allowed to. Some conferences don't want to. So I was in a hot tub once at Contact the Desert. I'm talking to this guy for 20 minutes and get out and he's like, "Hey, what's your name?" Brad Olsen. He's like, "Oh, I wanted to meet you." I go, "You just did."
The crowd always has so many questions. We never get to the bottom of the questions,
Yeah,
ever.
true.
So if they have a panel with questions, we never get to the end of it. And when you meet the crowd and spend time after, there's always questions and people line up. And so that just shows how widespread all of this phenomenon is. And it's not just UFOs or secret space program. It's like the entire, the words don't matter. The words, we don't have words to describe the community enough, but people that are just aware of things that are being hidden from us on purpose. And they know something's wrong. They witness something. And so they come to these conferences searching, to try to figure it out. And like I said, we just never run out of questions. It's a way of life for pretty much everybody, I think.
I think because we're all multidimensional souls, we on some level, instinctive level, know that something's missing. A huge component about our life is missing, and we're not sure what it is. So, we're always searching. We're constantly searching, trying to find those pieces that we can't quite articulate, but we know are missing. And it keeps us moving forward, asking questions, seeking crazy things, wondering, well, what is it? And I know that was absolutely true for me and for many people that I've met, that they know on some level that there's more to them and more to this than we've ever been told, because the story we've been told makes no sense. If you really sit with it, it has to be rubbish, and people who really want to know, that's a glaring question, and it can drive someone a lifetime to try to figure it out. And those are the people that have been awake for quite some time. And now others are beginning to wake up because they see the contradictions, they see the lies, they see the deception, and they realize, because their intuition is kicking in, they can smell bullshit everywhere now, and they're like, ding, ding, ding. Oh my God, I got it right. There is something wrong. And, we in the exopolitics arena, we have this slice, this piece. All of it isn't in this piece that we carry, the knowledge we have, because there are a lot of other pieces. This is like a huge puzzle that humanity has, because you have to understand, the people who created the Matrix created it like a puzzle, so that certain pieces would only fit for a period of time and then they would separate, to keep all of us constantly off balance, lifetime after lifetime. And they're masters at it. And that's the part we're trying to figure out is, okay, where are all the pieces? How do they fit? When did they fit? And it's just like every single one of us has become like a private investigator. We're not only investigating ourselves, but our life and the reality around us, to try to have it make sense. Because it doesn't. In so many ways, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. I agree. And I just noticed the time, and we are over an hour and a half. And so I know we all have other things to do, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And before I end this, I would love to give each of you an opportunity to speak to what you have coming up. Like Alex, I know you have a webinar. If you'd like to promote your webinar, and Brad and Tony, if you have events coming up, I want to give you guys a chance to promote that as well. So I'll let you guys decide who starts.
Well, we'll let the whippersnapper, Tony.
Thanks, Alex. And well said. Honestly, on all your points, Alex, I'm so, like I said, I could be sitting in the audience and just be starry-eyed by you guys. It's great panel. Thank you so much again, Michael. Whatever, I'm working piecemeal on a fourth book. I got a couple conferences. I'm dialing it back. I'm doing less talks like this, less conferences this year. Maple Street Learning is a learning program based on what I experienced when I was up there, and it's quite developed now. We have working software, and I work on that a lot. The remote viewing, I've started 2 companies that are remote viewing for profit. I'm trying to get my remote viewers, which I have a few dozen that are very talented, get them to be able to earn their money back that they paid me to learn. And I'm still teaching remote viewing on my Patreon. You can get there through the website, TonyRodrigues.com. And it's a lot of fun. It's worth your time. It's a lot of fun. But we are looking at ways, and we're very successful at monetizing. In a year or two, when things develop, I'll talk about it more publicly. But we are doing really exciting things with the remote viewing and moving into a for-profit venture, a few of them. So that's going on, and I still am working on other technologies from things that I knew, from things that I remember, and from what I'm learning in the research. So that's kind of where I've been going. And I'm always here. Like I said, I'll tell my story to anybody that asks, but I did it pretty hardcore. I was on the road a lot, not like Brad. Brad is like the atmosphere. He's everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
I never traveled at that rate, but I did quite a bit of time on the road the last, 2 years of every other week I was on the road, and I'm dialing that back quite a bit, for many reasons. But so that's where I'm at. If you're interested in me, my book is out there, Series Colony Cavalier, 3 books, Project Star Maker and Beyond Sight, The History of Remote Viewing and Psychoenergetics. You can find everything on TonyRodrigues.com. And once again, I'm greatly honored to be here.
Well, yeah, I guess I am like Oxygen, and I will be traveling in 1 week down to the Palm Desert, speaking at Contact in the Desert. Good to be back to the America's largest conference on UFOs. It's a buzz right now with these new data releases. And just last week, I was at Europe's largest UFO conference in Kirchheim, Germany, outside of Frankfurt. Was a great trip too. I'll be going to Bosnia next month for the Bosnian Pyramid Conference. And that one, I'm going to take another week off and go to Croatia and travel around a little bit with my girlfriend, Venus, and the host of Sovereign Soul, Brad Olsen, is coming. And so, yeah, I love traveling. That's what I do. I've done it my whole life, and now I'm doing it with these conferences and doing a lot of interviews as well in support of my new book, Secrets of Antarctica, The Untold History of the Ice Continent, which you can get a signed copy at cccpublishing.com. That'll go through my office here in Nevada, and I'll get a signed copy out to you right away, or any of the other books that we publish, including Laura Eisenhower. She's a CCC publishing author, and Michael Jaco, and Leo Lyons-Zagami, and a whole lot of others. So go to cccpublishing.com or check out bradolsen.com for my conference schedule and other projects that I'm working on.
Brad, I have a book idea for you, because you used to write travel books.
Yeah.
Take all your adventures now and go to the hidden jewels of these places and all the underground sites.
Well, I have a book idea about going to a travel guide to all the paranormal hotspots around the world. That would be kind of a cool book.
Yeah.
So I'm kicking that around. But my next book, my 12th book, is already halfway done. It's called Underwater Archaeology, and that'll be out sometime in 2028.
Very cool. Can't wait.
So
And
it's
then
kind
there
of
was
a mix of travel and paranormal and ancient civilizations. I love all that stuff.
very cool. And then we have Alex.
I do a webinar every Friday. It's 2.5 to 3 hours and you can learn if you're interested at alexcollier.org. There is a conference this weekend. I believe it's going to be available online. It's a GDX. It's out of Sweden, and I'm speaking remotely along with Brad Dan Willis. He's speaking remotely, but they've got a great lineup of people who are going to be there. Elena Danan is one of the epic speakers that's there, and there's just so much going on, and you might as well just get used to it. If you look to the right, you're going to miss stuff on the left. And if you look to the left, you're going to miss stuff on the right because there's just so much happening. So instead of trying to absorb all of it, just pick what you're the most interested in. And when you feel like you've had enough information there or you've gathered enough and it makes sense, then move on to something else. It's overwhelming to try to get it all in your head at once, because there's a lot of psyop out there right now, a lot of psyop, and you're not going to know what's real and what's not. And you need to digest the information and see what your intuition tells you, your gut. And so just take your time with everything that's going on. And the worst thing you can do is panic. It may seem like it's absolutely insanely out of control, but ladies and gentlemen, it's not. There is a plan. They've thought this out. It is rolling out in a very specific way to give everybody the time and the opportunity to catch up with everything that's going on. And so just know that the world isn't going to blow up. We're not going to have World War III. None of that is going to happen no matter what the media tells you. Okay? It's not going to happen. So breathe and just get into it. And when you feel overwhelmed, go into nature, hug a tree, ground your feet in the grass. Just calm down. Just be calm. Quiet your soul. And when you feel better, then go back to it. Okay? And that's all I got, Michael. Tony, I'm just so impressed with you, and I'm such a fan. And Brad, well, you know how I feel about you. I'm gonna bring some fresh tomatoes to Mount Shasta.
I'm thinking about it too.
Well, thank you all. We'll have to do this again. And, this was a lot of fun. And I am honored and blessed to be, if I have it correct, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the first podcast having all three of you on at the same time. So I'm grateful that we were able to do this. And I look forward to possibly doing it again if our schedules all permit.
Thank you. It's been an honor, Michael. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Tony, I know this, you and I have talked about this, but it is an honor and a blessing to me to know all three of you and to have you as guests on my shows. I view you all as equals and wonderful guests and great information and inspirations. And I am just so blessed every time I get you guys to come on.
Well, we've only done this once.
Well, you come out individually, so this is the first time as a group. I'm talking the whole shebang.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was being literal. My fault.
And Brad, he left an imprint on me of when I come on people's shows for the first. I always go, the first, because that's what he did on my show. And so I remember that. And it's an honor and a blessing to you guys. And my message to you three is from my heart and the heart of my shows to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. It's seen, felt, appreciated more than you know. So thank you guys for everything and being the way showers.
Thank you, sir. It's a privilege.
Our pleasure.
Gentlemen, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
And with that, we are going to say good afternoon to everyone and make it a blessed day. And we'll see you on the next episode.